So here's a bit of a graphic example of how learning and getting better at life works. So let's imagine it's kind of like a video game where you can respawn, except you're looking at like a little, let's just say a little fantasy realm, and then in this realm is a giant blender, like one of those really good ones. Actually, no, not a really good one, a pretty decent one. But it's one of those blenders that you can like open part of the top off and like throw fruit in there. So it's kind of like a fruit grinding blender. Now, to your left is a pile of U's. Actually, no, I don't like that. To your right is a pile of U's. So imagine like a gingerbread man, but they're all U, right? So it's just a box of U. Each one of these symbolizes kind of like, it could be like a mental breakdown, it could be like one of those life moments where you completely give up, one of those life moments where you just get traumatized, where you just like, you just kind of don't really want to live anymore because something horrible happened. This is like a failure, right? So you've got a bunch of U's. Now what happens is that you start throwing them into the fruit blender, right? And you start blending up you, and you instead of looking like a human with clothing, you turn into this like red puddle with white shards, and you start, excuse me, I don't know if you can hear that, I was touching my eyelid and it sounded a bit lewd. Anyway, so you just keep throwing lots of you into the blender, and you grab that little stick and you shove it down to you keep shoving it down to really blend yourself up. And this is every time you fail, every time you put work into something, you throw another U in the blender and it starts to fill and fill and fill, and the juice eventually spills, but the juice isn't good enough. The juice is like mild successes. So you push that little rubber thing down, and your juices start to spill all over the place, and that's like you getting some mild success after blending like 100 of you, because this is a pretty big blender, right? So you just have to keep going. It's just like, what I find, success is made up of your failures. It's literally just, I have another idea, which again, it's a bit graphic. It's like, imagine you have a giant ravine or a pit. You try to climb out of the ravine and you fall, and then you die and you respawn again, but your body is still there. So you've like got a second body now, and you just keep trying to escape the ravine, the giant pit, like a giant hole in the ground. And every time you climb up, you fall down because, I don't know, there's like, maybe it's slippery, and you die again. And eventually you just keep piling up bodies upon bodies of you, which is it's like all of those cringy moments, all those bad times, those bad experiences, those times where you were weak, where you lost and failed. And you just start, eventually you are walking on piles of you, and you just keep trying and keep trying, and year after year you fill up the ravine more and more with just you. And if you settled, the problem is, the more you've done, the more dead bodies of you, the more it starts to stink, and the more the air becomes like an ammonia air. And if you know anything about ammonia, it starts to like eat flesh, dissolve flesh if it's too strong. So the more you settle, and the more you kind of give up while you've already made a good effort, the harder, and the more that it stings you, the more that you burn in this literally self-created hell, you can think. Or if you like it better, maybe if you settle, you put yourself in the blender, but the blender is like, it's not blending correctly, it's gotten stuck on like a bone, so you're drowning in the juices of you. And you start to think like, I really don't want to be here, I want to keep going. And of course you need time to consolidate, you need time to, not achieve things and just rest. But if you really want to achieve things, that you will be in hell if you're not doing it, because again, the liquid will make you suffocate. The ammonia will corrode you. The more you've tried, the more work you've put in, the harder it will be to settle. That's why a lot of people who have basically been born and they've been born into settling, they live a nice worldly life. Society treats them well. They have a nice family, maybe. They seem to get a good job and maybe make a family, or they just live the luxurious life of pretty much what you taking whatever luxury society has because they have the money and the time to do that. Not everyone's born into that. Those people, they don't wince and feel terror because they're not doing something, because they're still at the bottom. They never piled up the bodies because they never tried. So there is no rotting corpse terrifying them at night. There is no failure of theirs which haunts them. It's just them in the pit. So really what I'm trying to say is that, excuse me, any success in your life will be, it's like a hole filled up of failure. Maybe it's like if you're trying to fill up a piece of wood like with resin or something, you're just trying to fill it full of that resin or full of whatever, that clay. Because if not, if you succeed based off like luck when you're young, then you're going to have to eventually go through that failure, because you're in an ascended state, and eventually that falls. Things go through cycles, the same way that eventually you will rise. You'll fall again, but you'll rise. And the more you filled in that hole, that pit, with your own failures, your own experiences, the lower you fall, because you fall back onto your failures. You fall back onto your experiences. Anyway, I'll leave it with that.